All right, let's see. We should be streaming any moment now. Looks like we got things fired up. I'm just waiting to confirm I've got video. Looking like I'm there at least. And there we go. All right, looking good. Well, it looks like me. I don't know about good. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the channel. I'm Brian. Yes, that's my cell phone notifying me that I've just gone live, but that's okay. Let me just mute the ringer real fast. Boop. There we go. Now, for those of you who know me, you know that I usually put out regular videos on, well, political topics and war topics lately, though for another channel for the war topics. They have me pretty focused on the Israel war right now. So in the meantime, I don't want to lose track of some of the information that's been coming out about the Ukraine war in the meantime. So I'm taking a couple of minutes gathering up the information I kind of bump into as I work, and then putting it together and quickly sorting it. I got a quick sort this time, so it's a little less disorganized than the last time. So quick sorted, got enough information here to talk for a little while at least. Since this is unedited, it is done live. I will be watching for your comments and your questions. I will be able to pause at any point in time to let you know, to talk about any topic you'd like. So make sure you leave a comment in the live chat below so I can see you here. In the meantime, let's just talk for another minute, just in case anybody's going to jump in immediately. But I'll be jumping into kind of a flow, just kind of an almost normal flow for a normal Ukraine update video, with the exception being, again, it is a little bit more disorganized than you would normally see from me. And that's just a matter of, hey, I've got so much time in a day, and I want to spend at least some of it with you. So let's go ahead and get started here. Oops, I got to select the right thing here. This one. There we go. Okay, it's a little bit. There we go. Perfect. All right, so welcome again. Thank you for joining me. We're going to start off looking at this story about Ukrainian partisans jumping into a Russian airfield and showing off where Russians have moved their jets to. They actually found them at an airfield at Nizhny Novgorod. In fact, that's very far from the border, as I recall. Let's just pop over here and, whoops, not there. Do the old Google Maps thing. Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. Let's see. Yeah, that is not exactly close to the Ukraine border. That let me see. Can you see everything there? Yeah, let me do a little bit of highlighting real fast. All right, Nizhny Novgorod is right here. And Ukraine is right over here. Do a quick shape around it real fast. I am not exactly an artiste, but Ukraine is over here. That is a significant different distance over there. So they have moved a lot of their military aircraft. Now this right here is Moscow. So they're having to go past Moscow to get their combat aviation into Ukraine these days. Okay, so let's continue on with that story. Boop. That's right. Because of concerns about the fear for the safety of their fighter jets, they've moved them so far away that the response times are much worse than they used to be. So they got some partisans onto the airfield, took some pictures of the planes. They're undergoing repairs there, which is not an unusual thing to do farther behind the lines. So, but interesting that they're being put that far back. The fact that there's partisans on the airfield taking pictures, though, is the really important piece. It means that even this far behind the front lines, they are not safe. Now, the article does address why they posted this photo. And they said, we provide a variety of information to our military. We share on social media only information that can be safely disclosed. Everything was approved by the military to avoid causing any harm. My guess is that this picture has already had the necessary information gleaned from it, and should be interesting to see if they do anything with that information. All right, let's pop over and look at how things are going over in Ukraine. Let's see, where are we at? I think I want to readjust things here, so bear with me just a second. And move you. Nope, that's not going to do any good. Bear with me. I do apologize. I just want to get you to where you can see the top of what we're looking at here. There we go. There we go. That's better. Do apologize for the delay on that. Like I said, I'm slightly disorganized today, not fully disorganized like the other day. Ukraine continues to look for waste and problems with and corruption in their government. They discovered a theft of foreign aid. An investigation conducted by Ukraine State Customs Service and together with the Ministry of Defense found that 1/3 of the humanitarian aid donated to the Ukrainian military in 2023, whoops, that got a little bit too far off, there we go, did not reach the military units. Now, this is humanitarian aid, not military aid. So they could have had other needs for that humanitarian aid beyond just the requirements of the military personnel. So that doesn't mean that 1/3 of it is all graft and corruption. But it does indicate that there may be a systemic issue with getting these types of humanitarian aid supplies to the front lines. Ukraine has passed a law that bans the Russian-linked Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Moscow. Apparently, they've been pretty much fundraising for the Russians, working against the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian people. So not really a pretty thing. I'm not so sure. Well, the thing about these churches is that they're often infiltrated by the FSB to the point where they're in fact an arm of the FSB, the Russian FSB, that is. So without knowing more details, it's interesting. It may be justified. Just want you to know about it. And the Ukrainians have put 500,000 anti-tank mines on their northern border with Belarus and Russia. They're preparing just in case Russia gets the idea that they want to, shall we say, come in again sometime soon. By the way, if you're just joining me, this is I'm Brian. Thank you for joining me. Be happy to look for your comments, so feel free to comment. I will be reading them as I go. This is my slightly disorganized version of what's going on in Ukraine. Since they've been keeping me busy with the Israel war over where I've been over at the main channel over there, I just figure I can do a quick deal live here and get y'all up to date. All right, let's move over to Russia for a bit. This is a video showing the damage that was carried out by a Gimler's missile strike on these non-military vehicles. They're obviously a column of transports, but these are not like armored cars or something like that. A lot of damage. The glass was all broken, damage all throughout the truck. All the tires on one side are flat. The fuel tank wasn't punctured, but it was damaged enough that they couldn't open the lid. Hey, Paul, thank you very much for joining me, and I appreciate you being here, too. I hope that this is good information for you, and that you won't miss out on anything from the Ukraine war, because we're giving it to you as best we can here. Or at least I'm giving it to you best I can here. So thank you. They shot down another Su-25 jet. That's right, that is the 5th jet they've knocked down in the last week. Su-25, Russian Su-25. The Kiev Post is wondering if this is because of the Franken-SAM systems they've been using to kind of fill in the gaps in their systems. Would be interesting to see exactly what they're doing to knock this down. I've heard some people theorize that they actually are sneaking man-pad teams behind Russian lines and taking them down from behind. And if that's the truth, I would sure love to know it. But that was all rumor mill material and just theorizing. Interesting thought nonetheless. The Russian Orthodox Church has been funding its own private military. And it seems like they've been growing some of these private military companies recruiting through the church. And they're using the religious aspects to encourage people to sign up on the dotted line and volunteer to go to the front. In Chelyabinsk, this was an interesting one. Back when Ukraine kicked Russia out of the Kharkiv region, this guy just happened to put up a video. Well, no, he didn't even put it up. He said it. Somebody else recorded him saying it, and they put it on a fake YouTube account. And he said, when Ukraine retook Kharkiv, glory to Ukraine. Well, the Russians found out about it by him being put on this fake YouTube channel. And they brought him before whatever the equivalent of the magistrate over there is in Russia. And they determined after a while that it was actually past the statute of limitations and didn't punish him for it. Kind of surprising, but, hey, at least somebody over there is paying attention to their law books. So have you seen the new 2024 Putin calendar that's been produced and is being released in Russia? That's right. There are lots of amazing, striking pictures of that piece of manliness that is the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. But something you won't find inside that calendar is anything to do with the war in Ukraine. The special military operation has been erased from existence. If it was going well and it was popular, it would be filled with patriotic, Vladimir Putin on a BMP, or Vladimir Putin on a T-90 tank or a T-14, showing those Ukrainians what for. Not a bit, not even a mention. Now, Gray Zone, this is a Wagner affiliated account. I find it interesting to keep track of them. They are, by and large, pretty decent as a source, as long as you watch out for the bias. Now, this is his information about arming and empowering Rosgvardia. That's the Russian National Guard. They are looking to make volunteer detachments out of Rosgvardia, but I'm trying to kind of put this into words here. He doesn't think it's a good idea. Or at least I should say he's keeping his opinion to himself on it, because Rosgvardia is not really as capable as they wish it would be. They developed a mechanism for volunteers to receive benefits they're entitled to, and it's less bureaucratic than the Ministry of Defense. But Rosgvardia is pretty much reporting directly to Putin at this point. So, it's a iffy thing. This one I bumped into from the Kyiv Post, stating that the defenders of Azovstal are basically being tortured while they're in Russian custody, and they are in no hurry to release them. And some of that might be because the leaders of the Azov battalion ended up being released by, was it not Turkey, was it? I think it was Turkey, in fact. I think it was. And so they might be just really incensed in a way that they would prevent them from actually bringing them out, releasing them in any way, shape, or form. Thank you, Paul. The old thinker here's got to remember things every once in a blue moon. Ukrainian intelligence believes that anybody who's close to Vladimir Putin is telling him that everything is going to plan. The concern is that anybody who tells him the truth may discover themselves without a job, drinking the tea, or flying out of a fifth story window. I'll even add potentially throwing hand grenades around the interior of a private jet. So anybody who would tell him the truth is probably pretty concerned about doing so. Now, we talked about the other day the ATACMS missiles. The They had launched them at Berdyansk, and they also launched them at Luhansk. And we started seeing the damage reports coming out of Berdyansk almost immediately. Luhansk has taken a little bit more time. And the initial reports I'm seeing are 5 helicopters destroyed in Luhansk, with 9 destroyed in Berdyansk. Though I have seen other estimates as high as 21. So it depends on exactly how you're counting them as destroyed or damaged. Because if you're including just the ones that are damaged, just the ones that are destroyed, yeah, that's going to be a smaller number. But some of these are not flight worthy anymore. They're having to be either robbed of parts to fix other things, or they just have had taken critical damage that'll prevent them from being used. Either way, they've lost, I think it was 5 Ka-52s. And that's a big thing right now, especially with the big attack over at Avdiivka. And losing those Ka-52s right now is a bad time to do so. For Russia. For Ukraine, it's a wonderful time to lose them. There was an Il-76 transport plane that skidded off the runway and basically caught on fire. They've said that the tire basically flew up into the engine, caught the engine on fire, and that is what happened to the plane. The crew did evacuate, but chalk up one more dead Russian aircraft to add to this day. And we'll be talking about this in a little bit here too. The worst single day in Russian aviation history, or at least for this war. This one is kind of interesting, and it kind of ties into what's going on over in Israel. Yeah, that dumpster fire over there at Avdiivka is insane. And they just don't seem to have any idea what they're doing because they just keep dumping more into it. Brief pause on that. How much have you seen about that whole Avdiivka situation, Paul? It's been looking pretty crazy over there for several days. And I really wish I could get more details on what's going on. It looks like Russia is maybe getting a little bit of an advance there. They're maybe moving forward, but they're doing it at such tremendous cost. I saw a Rybar post saying that it's a lot of carnage over there, that's for sure. I think it was a Rybar or Gray Zone post saying that they'd managed to take that waist tip again, which is a high spot overlooking the railroad and overlooking Avdiivka. But I've seen no confirmations on that just yet, and that was just in the last little bit. If they have, they took it with such tremendous losses. I mean, the numbers I'm seeing are insane. We'll talk about that in a bit. Over in Simferopol, this is kind of related to what's going on in Israel. Russian forces are basically doing a checkpoint for Muslims at the mosque after Friday prayers for, quote, verification. This is a mass check. It's probably unprovoked, and it's basically detention. Makes me wonder the exact reason for it. But I suspect it's related to the situation in Israel. Though Muslims would primarily be on Russia's side. So maybe there's some little bit of trouble in paradise. We're starting to see the first indications of North Korean ammunition hitting the battlefield in Ukraine. This is 122 and 152 millimeter HE frag projectiles. So, and they're relatively new, it says, manufactured in the 2000s. I wonder how good they are. All right, let's see. Brief pause to look at another article here, this one from the Kyiv Post. The Russians forcibly mobilize Ukrainians into their army. Basically, let me see if I can scroll down here, kind of put some of the text on the screen. Perfect. In Kherson, in the occupied regions of Kherson, people are being basically stopped and given a summons to come and update their information. And as soon as they do, they're handed a ticket to go right into the army. That is mobilizing the Ukrainian citizens to go into the military. and it is against international law. Interesting to see them doing it. It indicates there's some desperation there. We know that they've been trying to mobilize in that area. Oh yeah, Anna's really awesome. She does some good work. I've been very favorably impressed with the quality of her work. Anyway, that's illegal. It indicates, I think, that Russia's really struggling to keep enough men together to continue to prosecute this war. Okay. Whew. That's a lot of talking that's a lot of talking all in a row there. I've been talking for a bit. I'm going to take a brief pause and take a drink. If you see a whole bunch of water dribble down my chin, I apologize. So just bear with me a moment. The water bottle's just a touch leaky up there, so yeah, no big deal. And thank you for joining me, Paul. I hope more people join in. The previous live stream ended up with a lot more views than I expected when I went back and looked at it. Because, this is my personal stuff. This is my personal channel. It doesn't have the subscriber base that the big boys have. So my goal is to just get some information out there. So I don't expect it to grow. I'm not looking for it to grow per se, but I do think this is important. So I want to continue to make sure this information gets out there. All right. This is not what I want to talk about, but this is some information around Crimea, which is kind of the next couple of things here. The Crimean Bridge, they did open it back up. It is a vital link for Russia to bring in supplies and material. The thing is that they've opened it and said it's fully operational, but fuel trucks and supply trucks are not allowed on the bridge. So now they've got a bridge that is a tremendous drain on their security resources. They've got to keep air defenses there. They've got those smoke generators. They've sunk like boats and things around the pylons to prevent them from being hit from the Black Sea. They've done all these preparations to protect this bridge, and yet they can't use it for, at least for vehicles, to cross with military hardware. The rail bridge still can probably pass some, though last I heard, it was still on light duty. Okay, good. We're still here. Astra claims that a Ukrainian missile hit the territory of a military unit in the area of the village of Saharnaya Golovka. I'm going to butcher that name because I've not practiced it at all, which is near Sevastopol. This is a weapons depot for the Russian Black Sea Fleet. They do have a serviceman reported injured, but I have not seen any indications that it actually took out any significant amount of military hardware. I think it just hit on the territory of it. And, okay, this is actually a duplicate. Oh, yeah, that's the reason I put it there. Because there was a fun picture that people put up there of a painted Kerch Strait Bridge blowing up. So I thought that was kind of funny. All right, going to move out of Crimea and to some international stuff here. Romania. They're going to put up a modern anti-drone defense system, and they're going to install that right on the border with Ukraine because Russia's, well, they're jerks in this regard. They keep putting drones over Romanian territory, and Romania is starting to get tired of picking up the mess. President Zelensky had a nice chat with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and said, "Thank you for your support." There's some peace talks coming up in Malta, and Germany's got a Ukraine recovery conference coming up as well. The truth is that despite the whole Taurus missiles thing, Germany's been a very good partner in the sense of providing equipment for Ukraine to be able to use, at least from everything I've seen. I think that their whole situation over there is unique. But I'm thankful that they're still continuing to provide hardware. Ukraine has received a bunch of Mi-8 helicopters from Croatia. My understanding is that this was already promised. This is just them showing up, and they're last confirmed to have arrived. All the better. Now, this is actually outdated information. President Biden had said that he was going to seek out $100 billion for a funding request for both Ukraine and Israel. It's now $105 billion. And Ukraine it's earmarked for $61 billion for Ukraine, $14 billion for Israel, and then a few other things in there as well. The money that's earmarked for Ukraine, or at least will be if they can get it through, half of it's supposed to just basically refill U.S. stores so that we can keep providing hardware out of our storehouses for Ukraine to be able to use. So that's rebuilding our stockpiles so we can keep sending stuff over to Ukraine. A little bit of information about Israel over there. There's still 308 Ukrainians that need to be evacuated from the Gaza Strip, which is a lot more than I expected. But, you guys are more in the middle of it over there in Ukraine, so you might know exactly what's going on here. 308 people for a country as, quote, small as Ukraine. That's a lot of bodies to be moving. Surprised there's that many in Gaza. Oh, you're kind of interested in the whole defense spending thing? Well, it's complicated. Back up a step here. The way it's working right now is, at least in general, and I'm going to be doing high-level stuff here, so don't expect like nitty-gritty details. Right now, the U.S. is taking stuff out of our storehouses and shipping it over to Ukraine. Well, we can't just deplete our stores without replenishing them. So since we have made materials, we're shipping those over to Ukraine, then making new to stick into our storehouses again. Now, if Ukraine continues to have needs, we send them some of the stuff in the storehouse. But the thing is that the U.S. Stocks of old hardware are pretty deep in most cases. And a lot of times, like for instance, the Bradley fighting vehicles, we should be decommissioning those older ones anyway. And some of them are already destined for that. There's also the ATACMS missiles, the M39s that we just shipped over. The truth is we've got an upgrade program to make those into brand new missiles, or we need to retire those. The cluster shells are no longer what we're going to be building, though they've been tremendously effective in Ukraine's hands. So we take old stock that may even be about ready to be, pitched, ship it to Ukraine, and that is not any kind of a downside. If we went into the same war, we'd be using that exact same material. It's not like we're giving you just junk. We're giving you good stuff, but it's the same junk it's the same stuff we'd have to pull out and use if we were in a major war against a near-peer adversary. So we're going to replenish that with newer stuff, hopefully upgraded stuff, because, upgrades are good. But overall, this is it's in a large extent money going right back into the U.S. economy. All right, moving forward. The UK and its partners are launching a £127 million winter emergency assistance plan. So we know winter's coming. We know Russia's going to be going after the power generating facilities, the heat generating facilities, in hopes of once again freezing out Ukraine. It didn't work last year, but the Ukrainian power system is now more vulnerable than before. It's also more protected than before, meaning there's now a lot more of things like Patriot missile systems and Gepards and NASAMS and all these things that are there to protect the system. Russia, for its part, is likely trying to build up as much of a stockpile as it can, so it can do a major attack early in the season once it gets cold enough that you need that power over in Ukraine, and try and take out as much as possible and overwhelm the air defense system. But until then, Everybody else is putting together packages to assist, especially if they can get things like that are high value items that are hard to get, like transformers, and switching gear, all the things that are hard to get. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my vague memory here in the old noggin is that Ukraine was working the same power system as Russia, and they've been converting over to European power systems. Not easy to do sometimes, but overall, that's my understanding. And if they can move over to a European power setup, it'll be much easier to get spare parts from other places in Europe. Probably one of those parts of it are being upgraded and parts of it are not, and they're having to work both systems at the same time, which is complicated. It really is. Kazakhstan. Permian and Eagleford in Texas will keep Europe warm like last year. Yes, indeed. Kazakhstan banned the export to Russia of 106 types of goods that can be used for military purposes. These are dual-use goods, drones, microelectronics, etc. It's interesting to see some of these nations start to jump onto the sanctions bandwagon, as they're seeing Russia, which used to be a tremendous power in that area of the world, compared to what it is now. They're still large, physically large, but I did some looking at numbers. They only have about 150 million people in Russia, that enormous country with only 150 million people. The U.S. has 330 million people in it, and we're still growing. So this idea that Russia is this big, unstoppable force able to just lay down the law by sheer numbers, not true anymore. Not true anymore. Really interesting. Demographics will be their death. Talking about F-16s for a moment. Now, in the last few videos, we have talked about the F-16 possibly going to the being provided to Romania for the F-16 training classes there. They are also pilots from Ukraine that are going to the U.S. to get some training in Tucson, Arizona. The F-16s are committed, so we could see some as early as the first part of 2024, though they're talking first half, and with the rate at which things have been happening around here, we all know what that means. It probably will be late in the first half for most of it. But even so, the F-16s are on their way. Ukraine Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba stated that the U.S. is going to provide regular supplies of ATACMS missiles. And that could mean that they're basically pulling them out and testing them to make sure they're still good. Then they're boxing them up, shipping them out in small quantities so that Ukraine can use them for very targeted, specific uses. I've not seen this from any U.S. sources yet, but I believe it to be true only because of the other factors that I'm seeing involved in this. Even a small number of ATACMS can have an outsized impact, like the impact they had on those airfields over in Berdyansk and Luhansk, which I believe I still have coming up here for more information on that. So a few ATACMS in small numbers, if they'll provide the next level up with unitary warheads, that's something that could put some serious holes in a certain bridge. The Baltic Connector gas pipeline was damaged from the outside, according to the Estonian foreign minister. Now, that means that it wasn't done from inside. That's controlled entirely by NATO there. NATO is it's in NATO country. So we're now on to something that damaged it from the outside. They think they know what did it. This is the path of the Chinese, Chinese new polar bear ship that crossed right over the pipeline at exactly the right time. Now, China and Russia are in bed with each other these days, and I would not put it past China to arrange something along these lines. Does that make it absolutely true? Not necessarily. But it says something about the escalation of the war from China's perspective. From China's perspective, this is a low risk thing to do. And if it pays off big. But I'm not sure it'll pay off in the way that China wants it to. That's all theoretical, though. Sorry about clearing my throat there. Yeah, HIMARS were amazing at the start of the war. The only reason they're not amazing now is because Russia moved everything out of range. And I think that's what's going to happen with these M39 ATACMS, which brings an interesting idea together. And I'm going to kind of just adjust my chair for a second here. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. But the HIMARS with these new ATACMS missiles, sending these shorter range ATACMS has an interesting staged effect on Russia. Now, by sending them just these shorter range ones, they move all their hardware a little farther back. And as they move it a little farther back, well, then you send the next version of ATACMS, the one with the longer range. So if they don't move them all out of long HIMARS range, now you've got some nice, fresh, meaty targets to hit with the next version of ATACMS. And so if they had just sent the long-range ones right now, then Russia would have moved everything out of that range and had to fight for that farther away. But by doing it in a stage, it gives an opportunity for you to have an outsized effect now, and then an outsized effect again when we send the longer range stuff. That's all theoretical, but that was my thoughts at it. Germany, shipping more anti-aircraft guns, UAVs, a bridge builder, tractors, semi-trailers, border guard vehicles, and artillery smoke shells. Germany, like I said, has been a good partner to have, and a good partner to have in all of this. So that German hardware is good stuff. And now we come to the interesting bit right here. The Russian Air Force grapples with worst week of the war. This is fun and somewhat speculative, but it at least gets close to the facts here. The Russian Air Force has just experienced at least its second worst week of the entire war, and if the counts of damaged aircraft are proved accurate, it will have been the worst so far. This has been a punishing 7 days. I've already mentioned 5 Su-25s, up to 21 helicopters either destroyed or damaged, or a mix of both. That is a lot of hardware. Their previous worst single day was at the start of the conflict when they went charging into Kyiv and lost a whole lot of air assets all at once. So it's only a question of, do we have more destroyed Russian equipment in that one day where the ATACMS were used, that first day, or is that first day in early in the war, is that going to beat it out? I have the sneaking suspicion that this one not only might be bigger, I think it is worse for Russia. My personal opinion on that. As the article says, estimates still vary, but by any measure, losses suffered by the air component of the Kremlin plan at the time to defeat Ukraine by regime change and blitzkrieg was devastating. And over the first week of the war, Russian military planners used air forces to hit military bases across Ukraine. But overall, they had a lot of losses then, and now they've got a lot of losses now. Those ATACMS had what I call an outsized effect with all the helicopters they destroyed. So this has become a black day for the Russian Air Force and potentially the worst aircraft losses of the war. And right now, I believe that because I don't think that Russia's going to have a whole lot more of these left. Now this is just going from memory again. The last count I remember seeing is that Russia only had around 30 of the Ka-52 helicopters, their big attack helicopter, left in the fleet. And they just lost 5 the other day to ATACMS. So big, worst day ever. As the UK Defence Intelligence update says, this loss will also likely create additional pressure on Russia's pilots and airframes, already almost certainly suffering combat exhaustion and maintenance issues due to the unanticipated protracted campaign. There is a realistic possibility this strike will compel Russia to once again relocate its operating bases and command and control nodes farther from the front lines, increasing the burden on logistics chains. And it's true. If they're moving, the logistics chains might actually get slightly shorter, but the helicopters now are going to have to go farther. That means more fuel. That means more wear and tear. That means more parts. That means that anything they carry forward with them as ordnance that isn't fired has to be carried back, and that's more fuel. So every aspect of their operation becomes more expensive. That's more flight hours, more wear and tear on the pilots, for heaven's sakes. They're going to be having to do longer sorties, more of them to cover for the missing helicopters. So, big changes for Russia. Michael Weiss states that the 5 or so ATACMS took out 6% of Russia's rotary wing military aircraft. That's just amazing. And yes, the satellite images absolutely support that. By the way, if you're just tuning in, thank you for joining me today. Still working on it. I have got a lot more to go. How long have I been talking? 41 minutes. My heavens. That is a long time to be talking about this. But if you have a comment, absolutely drop it in. I'm seeing what Paul's saying and absolutely delighted to have him aboard here. And we'll be I'll be watching for your comments, and I do appreciate you being here. All right, so let's move on to the front lines. We're going to deal with the Kherson front on its own, but the front lines. So we've got some changes over the last couple of days. This is the deep state map that you should find pretty familiar by now. Let's see what, too close. Yeah, should be pretty familiar right now. Now, this is as of the 18th, these lines right here. And this is as of yesterday. No other changes on this area. Now, the big change, come on, give me that there, is right here. And I'll go ahead and run that forward and back so you can see that again. That's definitely been pushed forward by Ukrainian forces. They're continuing to make progress near Verbova. Now, let's take a look at... Oh, apparently I can't show the... Oh, there it is. Boop. They're in a different color now. Okay, good deal. That's north of their main defensive lines, but we've already got Ukrainian forces pushing in down here. So they're putting pressure on the lines for both the north and the south. This salient right here that the Russians are still holding on to is getting more and more vulnerable. They can't rely on their own defensive lines to keep them safe. So they're going to be pinned between the Ukrainian forces on both sides. So progress in the Verbova front. It kind of hasn't had a whole lot of chat about it lately, but I think it deserved its own moment or two in the sun. Let's see. We've got, those are just frontline updates. I'm going to let those go. We go to today. And we had the Ukrainians had some success near Klishchiivka, and the Russians had some success near Krasnohorivka. Let's pop to those two spots. Okay, this is yesterday's lines. And we're going to today's lines. You should be able to see that. We're just to the east of Klishchiivka, which is over here, Klishchiivka. Or if you can't see it on there, hey, get rid of that red line. No red lines. It's over here, in case you can't see it on the edge of the screen. Huh. Hold on a moment. It looks like I'm not capturing some of my arrows here. Bear with me just a moment. Clear that off. Turn this off. Now, let's see. I'm going to go to this. And we're going to go to here. Here. And now we're going to go whoop. Okay, there we go. That should take care of that problem. Now let's get this done. And now back to here and cut. And okay, there we go. Okay, so since my lines weren't showing up, let me get some lines together for you this time. Means you didn't see the lines last time, but you know what? It's okay. I think we got enough description there. So here's Klishchiivka over here. And here's an arrow. Whoop, not a red arrow. A blue arrow in case it doesn't show up on the screen there. And looks like it's right on the edge. Okay, so we're at Klishchiivka. And the Ukrainians have managed to get across the railroad tracks right here, which means that this whole side of the railroad tracks over here that the Russians are in is no longer effective for defense. It's open fields. They've got a tree line here, right? So let's use yellow for this one. They got a tree line here. They got a tree line up here. They got a tree line back here, which is off the screen at this point. But they got some tree lines, but they don't have anything but pretty much open ground to cover. So voila, that is the advance in Klishchiivka, partial success. Now let's go ahead and move over to Krasnohorivka. I've not looked at this yet, so bear with me a bit. Okay, let's move it down a touch. All right. So we can just kind of see the lines back and forth there. It's basically just expanding areas that are wide open and probably not well defended in Krasnohorivka. That's right above Avdiivka. There's going to be a lot of Ukrainian forces right over here in Stepova. And that's what's mainly countering this entire advance in this area. So the Russians have lost a ton of hardware throughout this area. We'll see if we can address some of that as we go on. But they've been trying to push this area repeatedly for the last week and basically meet charges, losing tanks, IFVs, artillery pieces, everything all through this area. So they got a little bit of an advance, but not as much as you might hope for that type of an investment. The Institute for the Study of War says that the Russian High Command is committed to the offensive operations in this area, despite heavy losses. And again, I come back to, I think it's a political problem. They've had a political person tell them that they must make progress, and they're not able to do so. And so they're still trying to pour as much blood as they can into the situation in hopes of basically bleeding out a victory. Now, this is from Gray Zone, and he really pretty well rips the Russian command a new one. They're wasting their mobile formations. They're trying to attempt to break these heavy defenses in Avdiivka. Since they're losing these vehicles and this equipment, they are in a situation where every vehicle they lose also loses all the ammunition, all the soldiers that are inside. Everything about this situation is bad for Russia. Even if they eke out a victory, at what cost did they eke that victory out? He says that they've already lost no less equipment than they did during the entire summer campaign near Robotyne. And this is just really, it's a tough call for Russia now. They've invested so much blood. How much do they think they can invest a little bit more and pull out a win? The problem is if they pull out a loss, then all that blood was for nothing for the Russians. Gray Zone suggests that they ought to just slam it with aviation. Now they've been losing enough at this point in time in aviation losses and artillery losses that I don't think they realize that there's just no way forward for them at this point in time. Pausing for a little bit of a drink of water. I agree with that, Paul. They just don't have the resources to dump in there. Not in available equipment and troops. More on the Avdiivka offensive. Got to go past that one because that's dead bodies on the bottom there. Kyiv Post says that Russia has lost 900 troops in one day. That is a lot. And this is just insane. It is not how to fight a war. This is how you lose a war, by wasting your best and your brightest and your most capable and your equipment on pointless, absurdly bad assaults like this. Up in the Northeast, this is they're saying that the Russians have overextended themselves so hard that the Ukrainians have pushed them back over in that Liman-Pershi area north of Kupiansk. That's not good news for Russia. They have obviously expended a tremendous amount of hardware, a tremendous number of lives, trying to make an advance in this area near Kupiansk. And yet they have nothing to show for it, and now they're losing ground. We'll be watching that one because this could be an Empire Strikes Back moment for them, where they're able to suddenly rally and pull back into that area. But we'll have to see what happens. Okay, that is part of the next part. So let's just move that over to there and come back. This is the report on the 5 Su-25s being shot down. And I know a lot of guys like to see some numbers. These are the numbers for yesterday. 29 IFVs, 3 APCs, 3 tanks, 4 artillery, visually confirmed. These are not these are not just stories about destroying a tank. These are not just stories about destroying enemy hardware. These are things where there are pictures, satellite photos, everything that shows what was lost. So that's confirmed losses. And that's kind of the front lines. We're going to go over to Kherson in just a moment here. And just to kind of refresh everyone's memory, Kherson, we're talking over here on the Dnieper River. A lot of the areas we're going to be talking about today, let me see, make sure, okay, good, are near Oleshki. Oops, boop. Are near Oleshki, get the red one out, there we go, Oleshki. And some additional action that are happening just over here across the Dnieper in this area right here. In particular, we're looking at, get that lined up so we can see what's going on. There we go. In particular, we're going to be looking at Poima, Pishtanivka, and Podstepny. I don't think we have anything directly about Podstepny here. But this is the area where we're going to be discussing. You can already see the gray zone has been expanded. You are absolutely correct, Paul. Production and repair are at slow rates in Russia. Much of that can be blamed on sanctions. There we go, sanctions actually taking effect. So each step is making a difference. All right, so the Russians are all abuzz. They are claiming that the Ukrainians have crossed the Dnieper River, that they're there and intending to stay. They're digging in. A lot of this is the typical Russian doom posting or panicking. However, there is the potential that there's also some truth in there too. We're seeing this last longer. Now, I did see somewhere they advanced into the area, They started pulling back again. They are not leaving the area entirely, according to the latest reports. Reports from Russian sources of a Ukrainian crossing of the Dnieper River earlier in the week have been partially confirmed in 2 locations. You can kind of see them on the maps here. This would be Ivanivka. I can't read it. It's too small a text. So 2 areas where they may have crossed the Dnieper River and are making additional actions as they go. This is Rybar's doom posting on the situation over here. Let me see. Hold on. Where's this? Yep, there we go. You can kind of see on the bottom left. Okay, good. We can see that. Let me see. Hold it. And we're going to do these. There we go. Sorry, I got to move things around on the fly a little bit here. Okay, so you can see on the bottom left here that that they're talking about these direct assaults across the river. Of course, they're also saying that, oh, we kicked them right back out. You can kind of see it in the 2 left photos or pictures there. But it sounds more like a typical Ukrainian withdrawal. A raid happening in that area. And the thing is that there's enough persistence there that even if it's a raid, it's a bigger raid than they've typically had in the past. So the whole situation in Kherson is really fluid right now. Interesting to watch, and I'll bet you it's insane for the guys in the field. Wish we knew more, but also we don't need to know more because that's operational security. So we just look at what the Russians say and kind of give it a bit of a giggle, or at least a happy smile. They're reporting that the Ukrainian units have infiltrated as far as Poima and Pishnyanivka and towards Krinky, and they're still holding a presence in parts of the settlement. That was as of yesterday evening. And they're reporting an intensification near Krinky. And if true, it can pull away Russian troops, but it's also a situation where Russian troops are very light in that area. They've been pulling troops from this front for so long now that all that's left often is ill-trained and ill-equipped troops. So either they pull troops back from other fronts, or if they can successfully pull a crossing and bring some heavy equipment across at the same time, they've got a fast and relatively easy way to cut off the entire Crimea Peninsula from resupply. That is a real long shot as things look right now. Tokmak is not really in the way in this regard. Let me see if I can get a good map of the area. Let's see, pull this up here. Cheeky breaky. Okay, here we go. Melitopol is over there. Great. So, Tokmak would be up. Let's see, I got to get my bearings here. Tokmak would be up in this area up here. Whoops. Off the map up there. So we're talking this area over here. If the Ukrainians can pull off a good, solid landing in this area, they have literal highway roads that will take them both to the east side, straight through some of their major resupply chains, right to the Henichesk Bridge right here at the at that Kinburn Spit, I think is their name, going from memory. Or hang on, the pointer tends to disappear a little bit when I'm doing this. Or they could run down this road right here, cut off the other supply line all the way into Crimea. I mean, this cuts off all of Crimea. Now, this is serious. This is seriously unlikely stuff here. I am not saying that tomorrow Ukrainians will be in these areas. I'm saying that would be the plan, is that they could cut off Crimea entirely from resupplying the troops in southern Ukraine just by being able to take this area right in Kherson. They don't even have to get that close because they have some of these longer range artillery pieces and the longer range things like HIMARS and ATACMS. So they have a lot of options for moving forward across the Kherson River if they can pull it off, get a reliable supply chain, get reliable bridging, and be able to get some heavy equipment across as well. Again, that's a lot of ifs, but that's the thought process behind it. Okay, let me see. Where was I? I have totally gone on a tangent. The Russians have been yelling a lot about this area right here. They are saying that they're company-sized elements that are crossing the river, that they are worried about this, and they're worried it's a potential larger Ukrainian operation. Which, if it is, you just saw what that would look like. If it isn't, it makes the Russians worry about what it's like. So win-win. There we go. And they're continuing. This is today's report. The Russians are still talking about a larger than usual Ukrainian ground operation in the east left bank of the Kherson Oblast, and that they're continuing to maintain a presence there even beyond the Antonovsky Bridge. So whether they're just worrying about it and this gives them something else to worry about, or it's really something, both ways work great for making the Russians worry. Some confirming video showing up of that whole situation. I think we've already beaten this part to death. And just more talking about the Ukrainian armed forces becoming active in Kherson. Interesting to see what the Russian perspective on this is, because at this point, that's the only perspective we're actually getting. Now, we're on to what I call the interesting extras. If you've been watching my other videos, you know exactly what that means. Ukrainian MiG-29 and Su-27 escort American B-1B Lancer bomber over the Black Sea in May of 2020. This was an interoperability operation. This is where the Ukrainians proved that they could interoperate with American military without issue using Russian hardware. Let's see if I can find it here. There we go. Yep. A Ukrainian Su-27 flanker and MiG-29 Fulcrum escort a 2 B-1B Lancers during a training mission for Bomber Task Force Europe, May 29th. Let me see if I can get this a little bigger. Whoop. There we go. That's bigger. There we go. Bomber Task Force Europe, May 29th, 2020. Air crews from the 28th Bomb Wing at Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota, took off on their long-range, long-duration Bomber Task Force mission to conduct interoperability training throughout Europe and the Black Sea region. They flew these bombers from South Dakota to Europe to interoperate with everyone from throughout Europe, including Ukraine, showing that even back in 2020, Ukraine was working towards being a reliable partner with the United States. Now, this is one version of this. There's been multiple others I kind of gone through. This is an Israeli, dang it, I can't remember. This is an Israeli leader of some type. Oh, yeah, that's right. He is a leader in the Likud party. And hang on a second. He's a leader in the Likud party, and he went on Russia Today, and he went off on the Russians. Russia supports the Nazis who want to commit genocide against the Israelis. We will win, and we will come and make sure that Ukraine will win too. We will make sure that you pay for what you did. That's how ticked off Israel is. They'd been kind of buddying up with Russia for a while, and that it wasn't really like this full cozy relationship, but they worked together sometimes, and they were sometimes a little bit opposed, but they kind of made sure that they weren't stepping on each other's toes. Well, Russia supports Iran. Iran supports Hezbollah. Iran supports Hamas. Hamas attacks Israel. Hezbollah attacks Israel. And by the commutative property, that means Russia attacked Israel. They may not be there personally, but Russian rifles, Russian ammunition, Russian equipment is there doing the damage. Just a really interesting moment on Russia today. See, this should be fairly safe here. A video appearing of a Ukrainian military shooting down a Su-25 near Avdiivka. They don't show the impact. They don't show the missile. But it's just interesting to see at least even this little bit that we've got. And having the Su-25 get hit by the Ukrainians. Really just fascinating. Okay, this one. You're going to laugh if you can see this here. It's been long enough now since I grabbed this that I don't remember the details of what he said. So I got to pull out my cell phone, get on Google Translate, because I don't feel like doing it the easy way. Americans, wake up. You're ruled by, and I don't know what it translates as. It's not English is what it translates as. Alaska, we are with you. There we go. That's the reason why I wanted to show it there. This is one more indication that Russia's intentions are not to stop at Ukraine. They invaded Ukraine not as an end goal, but as a stepping stone. They want Alaska. They want Moldova. They want the Baltics. They want it all. And they're not going to stop unless we, as a world, stop them. And that's the reason why I brought that one up. Another one here. This one should also be fine. This is a Ukrainian who is working his drone equipment as a shell comes in, and the debris ends up falling all around him, but he just sits there and keeps on working. I'll do that one more time just because it is such a surprise. And this one is it's a happy, sad story. This, let me get this turned. This is going to be way too loud. Let me hit the mute. Boop. Okay, there we go. And let's get this killed over here. This cat was survived in the rubble of a house. And he was rescued, which is wonderful. But he's old. He's missing his teeth. Definitely did not appreciate being underneath the house like that and stuck and needed rescued. The thing is, his family was killed in the attack. And so now he's been sent to live with, I believe it's the parents of the family, who will take care of him and make sure he gets the care that he needs. But every life matters. Even the old cat who doesn't have any teeth, that is just needs some way to survive. But we'll end on something on a little bit of a nicer note. That looks like one comfy cat snuggling up in all the chips right there. Happy as a clam and does not want to be interrupted in the slightest. And that's everything I've got for today. So do you guys have any questions while I am still here? I'll be keeping an eye on the chat for another minute or two here. A lot of the crazy things that are going on right now, it's sometimes overwhelming. And even worse is the fact that there's so much of it that's being reported that is reported inaccurately, and you have to sift through and understand what's true, what's false, and have a discernment about when you are being fed propaganda versus when you are receiving facts and truth. There were a couple of examples of it recently in the Israel video where the initial reporting was so off. Hi, Phil. Thank you very much for joining. I'm glad you managed to make it. And I'm about to sign off, so we're just about there. But thank you for joining. But yeah, it is so much of things are getting reported, and they're being reported in a way that is intended to do maximum damage to the truth, not provide maximum facts about the truth. So keep a careful eye on what you see and what you read. Not that you shouldn't read it, but remember, if your first response is rage, fear, strong emotional responses, there's a pretty good chance that you are reading propaganda rather than facts. There's plenty of facts that do give those same reactions. But when I am reading an accurate report, I might feel those emotions, but the real feeling I get is needing to know the facts. And if I'm getting that feeling instead of the strong, overwhelming emotional response that demands an emotional outburst, then I'm probably pretty close to accurate information. Everything needs checked. Make sure you check from reliable sources. And I'm not just saying that. I think every source, including the mainstream media, needs to have a good double check. But keep that in mind as you look at things. Well, yeah, I don't have any relatives over there. I have to rely on the information I can find from other people, and then sort it out into truth from fiction. So that's everything for today. Yeah. It is a bit late, but Phil, thank you for joining us, even for this very last few minutes. Please go to the beginning, jump over, watch it from the beginning. It's long. I think I've been on for over an hour now, an hour and 12 minutes, it looks like. But a lot of information, and I do appreciate it. If you're coming in late or or seeing this after I end the stream, make sure you give me a comment. I do read them, I do pay attention, and I do respond in every way I can when I've got information and answers. And on that note, thank you for joining me. You have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next video.